So essentially this house here is my dream house.
Welcome to Saguache County Stories, a podcast of the Northern Saguache County Library District, where we explore the evolution and history of the land and people of the northern San Luis Valley of Colorado. I'm Sarah Kane Fry, Director of the Northern Saguache County Library District. In this episode, local resident Richard Trotter shares his story on the theme of finding home. In our Finding Home series, folks talk about their housing journey in the San Luis Valley.
Hello, I'm Richard Trotter. I live in Saguache, Colorado, and I'm 51 years old. Okay, I guess I'll just dive in. So I'm originally from Pueblo, Colorado. I'm a Coloradoan. I was in the Air Force for 21 years. I lived in Oklahoma for a little while, and then when I came back, I actually got a job with the Forest Service in Pueblo in the dispatch office. So lo and behold, on the radio, I met my wife. She was a dispatcher down here, so prettiest voice in the world. And we ended up getting together, and she's from here in Saguache. So I was still in the Air Force Reserves, and I got a job with the Forest Service down here, actually on a fire engine, which probably wasn't my best option. I was a little out of shape in my 30s. But so I worked here for one summer on the fire engine, and I moved here with who's now my wife, and I just decided that she was a lifelong resident. She wasn't moving anywhere. I liked it, and so I decided to stay, and that's when I came around and started looking for a house that fit my requirements. I have some requirements, and I found one. I've accumulated, when I moved here, I guess I was in my upper 30s. It was 2007 when I moved here. So I had a lot of stuff that I brought back from Oklahoma, things I'd collected over the years. So part of my reasoning for buying a house down here was to move things out of my storage area in Pueblo and look for a place here so I could have it all together. What was nice about the house I ended up buying is it's not a very big house. It's about 1,000 square feet, but it has 3 outbuildings. So I have like a workshop garage, and there was an outside garage back on the alley and a little storage shed. It's 2 lots. It had apple trees, which as far as I can remember has always been one of my dream house goals. So essentially this house here is my dream house. So that's how I came about buying it at that time. I have a past story, and I can relate the story to the future as well. So if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and read it. It's a history from let me read the title here. It's the Saguache County Museum Presents Images of the Past, Volume 4, People, Places, and Events. And you can get these over at the museum. A little ad there for them. But it's really neat. It has a history of the house that I bought. So it's the history of the house I purchased, submitted for the Saguache Women's Club by Ann and Orville Werner in 1979. Originally, Charles Tarbell bought the lot at the area in 1880. At some point, it went back to the town of Saguache, and then a fellow named Kracklauer bought it in 1904. The house was supposedly built in 1903. This is from Ann and Orville. We don't know when the house was built or who built it. The front part was built with logs sawed on 2 sides. The back part, added later, was with brick, frame, and adobe. The first family we can remember living there was the Friedel family. I remember them living there in 1922. They may have lived there before then. Mr. Friedel was the superintendent of schools. The Friedels bought the house on July 19th, 1929. Dr. Waltig Kading bought it on October 23rd, 1948. Dr. Kading had an office where the clinic in town is now. The Orville Werners bought it on July 3rd, 1958. So that comes down to me. They had the house for 50 years, and I bought the house in 2008. So I'm the sixth owner of the property and house in order, as far as we can tell. So one of the good memories was by a lady named Virginia Sutherland, one of our folks who just passed away around here. But she was a rancher. Sutherland family was a bunch of ranchers here. But her memory, and this is pretty neat. I have a few fond memories of the then J. Casper Friedel home, now owned by Orville and Ann Werner. This home is situated just across the street south of the Methodist Church and just east from the old grade school where I went to school. Mr. Friedel was longtime superintendent of the Saguache schools. He was a dignified man with a very shiny bald head, and he and Mrs. Belle Friedel seemed rather elderly to me then, but of course I was only a small child in the lower grades, as this was in the 1930s. We had some very severe winters during some of these years, and there were times when our ancient vintage 1917 black bus couldn't get through the drifts or blizzards, despite its high wheels. The other two bus routes were of course stalled also. So the poor Friedels and the George Birches, he was the principal of the grade school, and others had to house all of these bus kids somewhere. Several times a whole batch of us inundated the Friedel home and proceeded to have a ball. Poor Mrs. Friedel must have collapsed in exhaustion when we left. She would feed us all somehow and bed us all over the house and floors. I remember a pretty oriental, I think, rug and kids sleeping in giggling rows on it. Once we were snowbound for some time and spent 2 days and nights with the Friedels. Probably they were never the same again. But we loved them for being so nice to a bunch of wild kids, and that's why I've always had fond memories of them when I look at that house. By Virginia Whitten Sutherland in 1979. And I just have visions of little kids running all over the house, having a blast. And what a neat way to move into a place and have it as your dream home. That's the story of the house that I bought here. So you're asking about the future. Essentially my dream home. I know there's a lot going on nowadays. People want to start Airbnbs. They want to rent their houses out. I think I haven't heard it personally, but I think there's a subcurrent that says, why doesn't he rent his house out? Because I do live with my wife on the west side of town in the house that she's rented, and she just wants to stay there in her house. So I've been just gradually working on the house and fixing it up. But my whole purpose is not only to have the storage that I mentioned earlier, but it's my dream home. And my wife has 3 kids that she's raised here in Saguache. And 2 of them are now gone, but they're away at a different location. And there's one of them that's still here, and I have 2 granddaughters. And my whole purpose for this place is to have it so that my adopted family that have adopted me have a place to go. No matter where they are in the world, they can always come home. So that's the main reason I have the house. For now, I get to do whatever I want with it, but at some point they'll get it from me. I originally moved in and I was in the late 30s, my age 30s when I moved here. The reason I came was mostly to be with my wife, and the place kind of grew on me. So as far as the age, I started out fairly young. And at the time, I was still in the Air Force Reserves in Colorado Springs. So I would actually 2 or 3 times a week, I would drive to Colorado Springs, I was a flyer with the Air Force, and I would do my work with them. And then it was just a nice place to come home to. I grew up in Pueblo, but we always spent summers near Lake San Isabel at a place called Aspen Acres. And so all summer my dad worked up there, so the whole family would go up. And I just always envisioned having a place close by the mountains. So at the time in my 30s, it was just, I just wanted a house, a place to be, like I mentioned before. Now I'm realizing at 51 that I'm not as able to do things as I used to be. So as far as the age, I'm not going to be able to shingle roofs anymore. I can do some construction and stuff, and I'm remodeling the house, but it's taken me a little while. So I don't know that age actually affected why I'm here. It's more of the family kind of reason that I'm here. So at one time, and you can see it in the picture out of the book too, there was a front room, and I got this from the family. So there's the front part of the living room, and then actually the back part of what is now the living room was the parents' bedroom. And to get to the kitchen, you had to go through the parents' bedroom to get back to the kitchen. But they raised 3 kids there, and after they had moved out, they opened up the entire living room. So it's almost the entire space. It's a very large living room in there. There's 2 bedrooms that come right off of it. So it's a nice open space. It's easy to heat. The walls are a foot thick. It's just really kind of a neat place the way they did it. It's probably sitting on rocks. Since 1903, it had some water issues, so the front of the house is actually settling a little bit. So it's sat down, but overall, the whole house is in really nice shape. They lived there for that 50 years, and they had done a remodel of the kitchen in the 1970s, I believe. It seems like 70s appliances. They finally did wear out on me, and I'm in the process of remodeling the kitchen, which was built out of brick. There's a really nice sunroom on the back, which was built in. It has the old wavy windows back there, great for plants and sitting on a sunny day. We'll need some work. But overall, it's just pretty nice. As far as the construction, the bricks are part of, they're very similar to the bricks that were downtown here. So I'm assuming that they had a supply of those. It's the very soft brick that they used back then. People they can carve their name in. But the house has been covered up. It's been sided. It has masonite siding. And then at some point they put a brand new roof in over the whole structure. And it pretty much looks the way it does today. Yep, I plan to be here the rest of... hopefully I get a trip to Florida at some point and get out of this cold weather. But I'll be here with my wife. She'll be a lifelong resident.
You've been listening to Saguache County Stories. Thank you to our guest, Richard Trotter, for sharing his story. This podcast is made possible in part through a generous Saguache County sales tax grant. Our music was created and performed by Lydia Schultz-Sprouts and Rob Treefort with Golden Turtle Sound. If you would like to share your story, have questions, or would like to reserve your spot at an interview event, email Eden. She can be reached at edenelderberry@nsclibrarydistrict.org, or you can call the Saguache Public Library at 719-655-2551. For new episodes, to read our blog, or to watch our YouTube channel, check out the Northern Saguache County Library District website, nscld.colibraries.org.